Today's story was published by Charlie Bear and is about the husband was dumbfounded. He had no idea that his wife had cheated on him. He worked so hard for his family and wives, but she clearly did not love or respect him. Okay, let's go to the story and see what happened there. My name is Rick, and while I was in high school and college, most people who met me got the impression I was a computer geek. I am not a bad-looking guy, but certainly not the best-looking guy on earth either. I am 6 feet tall, weigh about 170 pounds with light brown hair. I did date. I don't remember a time when I was not interested in computers, computer programs, and computer games. Anyone who had problems with their computer knew who to go to, and that would be me. That is exactly how I met Karen, the woman who was to become my wife. It all started 7 years ago when we were both students at the University of Wisconsin, her in the legal studies area and I in the computer science area, of course. Karen had a goal to become a corporate lawyer, and I wanted to learn more and more about computers and programs. She was having difficulty in understanding her computer system, and went to one of the professors in the computer science department, who in turn referred her to me. I was able to help her understand her system, and she became extremely efficient at all kinds of computer work. Also, through it all, we became friends and spent a lot of time together. Now I should tell you about Karen. She is a very attractive 5 feet 4 inches tall blonde with a very nice 36 degrees Celsius, 36 figure. In fact, she is hot. She also has a great personality and seems to get along with everyone she meets. It is very easy to like her, and I did like her a lot. In fact, over a short period of time, I fell in love with her in a big way. She is everything that most guys could ever want, and certainly more than I ever expected to find. But indeed I did find her. She got to know me and fell in love with me too. Stranger things have happened, but I don't know what they could be. Update. After 2 years in school, Karen realized she would not be achieving her goal of becoming an attorney, but she was still interested in legal work, so she applied for jobs as a legal secretary. She was eventually hired by one of the major brokerage firms, and she immediately took to the job. Within 2 months we were married, and she continued to work and support us while I finished school. Through her hard work, dedication, and friendliness over the last 5 years, she has worked her way up and was transferred to the Chicago headquarters to be the assistant to the manager of the firm's legal department. I received my degree in computer science and decided that I could earn a very good living writing computer game programs. I started my own business, and over the last several years have written numerous very popular computer games that you or your kids would certainly recognize. I have made a lot of money and really don't have to work very hard any longer. We have moved to Highland Park, a suburb of Chicago along Lake Michigan, since we were both doing so well in our work. Karen and I have built a very comfortable life together, and we both work because we enjoy it, not because we have to work. In an effort to keep from going crazy with an activity, I secretly started another company in Milwaukee, about a 1-hour commute for me, to investigate computer software fraud, CSFI Inc. Through some confidential contacts at the Institute of Computer Technology. I started with a small list of clients, and that list has continued to grow by word-of-mouth advertising. CSFI Inc. has a current customer list of about 150 clients, and at any point in time might be working on 5 or 6 projects. The companies that use our services are extremely happy with the work we do, and the profits are very lucrative. We grossed over $3 million last year. I hired a very competent office manager, Carrie, in contract with a dozen or more computer geeks like myself to do the majority of the investigation work. We rotate them on the projects so that they do not become too familiar to the customer. The only actual employees of the company are Carrie and myself, and the investigators each get paid a percentage of the fee for the projects that they do for me. With the huge amount of profits being made in the software industry, the need for confidentiality and secrecy are quite extreme, so I have always maintained a level of anonymity. In fact, no one at the company knows me, not even Carrie, because I always wear a disguise to hide my true identity when I investigate, and because I wanted to keep my involvement a secret. I wore such a disguise when I hired Carrie. Over the years, I have become very good at developing new disguises to fool everyone, and when I investigate a case, I get paid just like the rest of the investigation staff, except my pay goes to a separate account I have set up under an alias. As I said, the majority of the investigations are done by my contracted staff, but about once a quarter I will take one of the jobs myself for the fun of it. Karen does not know about CSFI, so I use the pretext of going to Milwaukee to meet with my game distributor to get away for a few days to do the investigation. Actually, all of my computer game business is done through the internet. For CFSI Inc., though I drive to the company's apartment in Milwaukee, park my Beamer in the garage, and put on my disguises. Then I drive a company car, currently a Buick, to the office to pick up the investigation materials and go wherever I need to go to do the job. Sometimes it is local, but sometimes it is in NY or C or wherever. I finish the job and go back to Milwaukee, reverse the process, and go home. You are probably thinking that while I am doing all of this traveling, I am cheating, taking every opportunity to date some women and cheat on my wife. But nothing could be further from the truth. I love my wife beyond my own capacity to understand and would never do anything to hurt her or my marriage. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for Karen, and that is why I am writing this story. I had personally taken an investigation for Marcos Software to determine if one of their programmers was selling source code to a competitor. Jeff Marcos designed a program to track securities transactions, and I thought it would give me some insight into the work that Karen does, so I jumped on that investigation myself. The company is located in Oak Brook, another suburb of Chicago. Although it might be fun to hit some of the restaurants and clubs in my own stomping grounds while under disguise. Who knew? Maybe I would encounter some friends I could toy with. Little did I know what I would be really encounter and what I would be investigating. I had all of the information needed from Carrie, my office manager, and I set myself up in the Drake Hotel in Oak Brook, only a short drive from Marcos Software. I arrived at Marcos and after a short wait was greeted by Jeff Marcos. He was tall, dark, and handsome, a replica of the traditional pattern for a man that women would find attractive. Jeff was also very outgoing and friendly and had a presence about him that put me at ease as well, and I really found myself liking the man. He invited me into his office and talked to me about what he suspected and how he thought I might approach the investigation. He set me up with everything I needed right there in his office, and was telling all of his people that I was a special projects manager with one of their customers there to work out the bugs on the program application with my company. I thought it would work out quite well, so we went with that approach. Update 1. The second day I was there, I discovered that Jeff's suspicions were correct and one of his people, a programmer named Tom, was selling source code and exactly how he was doing it. While I was writing up my report, Jeff's cell phone started to ring. It was sitting on his desk beside me and Jeff was not in the room, so I glanced over at it. To my utter surprise, the caller ID showed Karen and my wife's cell phone number. My first reaction was to grab the phone and surprise her, figuring that somehow her firm was using Jeff's software and wouldn't she be shocked to find out that I was working here. But of course, then all my efforts to keep CSFI, a secret in my identity as secret, would be lost. So, I just sat there chuckling to myself about the irony of the whole thing. A short time later, Jeff returned to his office and returned my wife's call. My chuckling soon turned a broken-hearted, sick feeling when I heard him say, "Karen, I am so glad you called me. I had a wonderful time last night. Can you meet me at Morton's for dinner at 6:30 p.m.? Okay, I will see you there, and after we will go to your place for dessert. Bye, sexy." Well, you could have knocked me out of my chair with a feather. I was so stunned that I am sure I looked like a zombie, and I felt like my breakfast was going to end up on the desk in front of me. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I excused myself to go to the men's room and sat in the stall until the beating of my heart settled down and I could actually think again. How could Karen do this? I thought she loved me like I loved her, but she was meeting Jeff again tonight, and he had said he enjoyed last night. And the things he had said to her were not things you would say to someone unless you had had sex with them. How could this be? I just did not understand at all. I had no clue, no inkling at all that Karen had been cheating on me. Our sex life was great. She never complained that I was not meeting her sexual needs. I was dumbfounded. I just couldn't understand, and all the while my heart was just breaking. How could she do this to me whom she loved? Did she love me at all? What was my marriage? Was it real or was it a sham? I have to tell you, I thought right then and there that my world was coming to an end. All I had worked for was for us, Karen and I, and now I just didn't know anymore. When I had settled down enough to not lose it, I decided that I needed to verify my suspicions and not go on the little bit of evidence that I had so far. Once I had all of the facts, or as many facts as I could gather, I would put a plan of action into place. I went back into the office with Jeff and sat down to finish up the project so I could dedicate the next couple of days to find out exactly what was going on. I had a very difficult time sitting there because I wanted to attack him, but knew that would be a mistake. To make matters worse, Jeff had this big grin on his face and apologized to me for the way he had talked in front of me. He said, "I am sorry that I said those things in front of you, but that woman is so hot. I met her a couple of weeks ago at the office of one of my customers, and we hit it off from the start. At the moment I hated him, but I could understand that Karen would like him because he was very nice to talk to." He continued to say, "She told me that the next time her husband, she called him computer boy, he laughed, left town on business, she would call me and we would get together. Well, yesterday she called, and who could turn away a beautiful woman like hers? I was dying inside, but I held it together. She told me that she married Computer Boy because she knew he would end up rich and that would give her a great life, and she could still duck gorgeous men like me. Again he laughed. I'd asked her if she didn't love him, and she said she did, but she also loved having great sex on the side. I couldn't believe how much information I gathered from him that morning without his knowing who I was and certainly not knowing what I was going to do. There was really no doubt in my mind that it was my Karen because of the Computer Boy comment, and it seemed quite evident that she had cheated on me with him and apparently with others over the course of our marriage. I realized that I knew a lot, but I would need more proof, and then I would put a plan into action. I told Jeff that I needed to leave for the rest of the day and would be back the following morning. When I got to my car, I called Karen on my cell phone. She was so sweet and loving, telling me how much she missed me. It made me want to throw up again, knowing what a sham it was. I asked her what her plans were for the day, and she said she was working all day and would possibly go out to dinner with some friends. I told her that it would probably be another day or two before I got home and that I would call her later tonight. She said not to call because she didn't know what time she would be home from going out with her friends. She really just didn't want to be interrupted while she was having sex with Jeff. I was sick. Update 2. I knew I had to catch her at cheating, and I knew just how to do it. On my way home, I stopped off at the electronics store and bought 5 of the new mini wireless surveillance cameras and a modem so I could monitor the kitchen, the living room, the family room, the master bedroom, and our guest bedroom. I didn't know where she would take him to duck him, but I wanted it covered anywhere they went. When I got home, I turned off the security camera with the remote, drove into the garage so no one would notice the strange car in the driveway, went into the house and rewound the tape so my getting home would not be evident. I installed all of the surveillance cameras and fed the output to the modem and recorder that I set up in my basement workshop. That way I could dial and access the output online and would be able to monitor the whole house without anyone knowing. Satisfied with my work, I left the house, got into my car, and backed out of the driveway. I went around the block, and as I was driving by, I reactivated the security cameras with the remote. Unless she looked very closely at the security tape and noticed the time break, she would never know anything happened at the house, and Karen never looked at the tapes anyway. That was my thing. By the time I had all of that done, I was starting to feel a little hungry, so I went to a little pizza place near the hotel and ate. I only had a couple of beers because I wanted to be pretty sharp as I monitored what happened at home. After dinner, I drove to the hotel and set up my computer so I could see what happened and waited. Even after all I had heard, I was hoping that this was all a big mistake and it wasn't her, and she wasn't cheating on me, and she wasn't only in it for the lifestyle. I heard so bad I finally broke down and cried. Around 8 p.m. I saw her car pull into the garage, and I could easily see that she was alone. My heart did a jump, thinking maybe nothing was going to happen. But a couple of minutes later, the security camera was shut off and I couldn't see the driveway anymore. I switched over to the kitchen camera and saw her come in. She was wearing one of my favorite outfits, a short black dress, rather low cut with spaghetti straps to hold it up. I loved her in that outfit until that very moment. I knew she would never wear that outfit to go out with her friends for dinner. She wore that outfit to turn on some guy, usually me, but tonight not me. Tears started to stream down my face again as I realized finally that this was no mistake. Karen was not who or what I thought she was. I didn't have long to wait until Jeff walked into the kitchen. She apparently had left the garage door open, and he drove his car into my spot in the garage so neighbors would not see his car. As soon as he walked into the kitchen, Karen melted into his arms and he gave her a kiss, all the time rubbing her back. I could see herself into him. She broke the kiss and suggested, "Why don't we adjourn to the bedroom?" She grabbed a bottle of wine and 2 wine glasses as they left the kitchen. I switched to the living room camera and just saw them pass through on the way up to the bedrooms. I don't know why, but I was thinking, I hope at least she will duck him in the guest room and not in our bed. How utterly ridiculous is that thought? But I did have it. That isn't what happened though. When I switched to the guest room camera, there was nothing there, so I switched to our bedroom and they were sitting on the bed kissing. Karen opened the bottle of wine and poured each of them a glass. "To a handsome man and great sex," she said. He raised his glass. They touched their glasses and drank about half of the glass and set them down. Jeff stood up and Karen opened his pants. I could see the smile on her face. I just couldn't believe this was happening before my very eyes. And no, I wasn't turned on, and no, I didn't want this to happen. If this had any hint of being the first time, I wouldn't have been here monitoring it. I would have been home stopping it. But there was every indication it wasn't the first time. So what good would it have done to stop it this one time? She would only have done it again a different time. I needed my proof, and then I would figure out what I was going to do. Well, everything I didn't want to happen did happen. Oh, Jeff, that was the best I have ever had too. Last night was great, but this was unbelievable. I love the way you play me. I just love it. I may never let Computer Boy duck me again." Then she laughed. "Can we do this again tomorrow night? Mr. Inadequate One won't be home for a couple of days yet." At that moment my heart broke. Up until she said that I figured she loved me but just wanted more sex than I was giving her. Up until she said that I thought I would confront her, and she would stop because she loved me. But with that comment I knew she really didn't love me and didn't give a second thought to scorning me in front of her lover. At that moment I knew our marriage would be over because I could not live with someone who didn't love me and respect me no matter how much I loved her. She clearly did not love or respect me. My love died. I didn't will it to happen. I never would have dreamed it could happen, but it died. I turned everything off. I had all of the proof I needed and frankly I didn't want to see any more. I don't know what else they did. I don't know if he spent the night or left right away. I didn't need to know any more. And how can you break a heart any worse than mine was broken at that time? My love had died. But I still had to mourn its loss. I just turned everything off, went to bed and cried until it was time to get up in the morning. I got up and took one look at myself in the mirror and knew I was going to have a bad day. My eyes were swollen. I was a mess, but I knew what I had to do today. Final update. I had been thinking how to end our marriage and frankly how to destroy her like she made me hurt. Yes, I know it is immature to seek revenge, but I honestly felt I needed to destroy her for my healing to begin. I didn't hold any major animosity for Jeff either, but it wouldn't be right for him to duck another man's wife, break up their marriage and get off unscathed. I would have my revenge and then maybe I could put it all behind me. I went to Jeff's office and put my plan into action. It was going to be simple for me, Computer Boy, to make it all happen. I would not leave a clue that it was me that did it either. I really didn't even feel like hurting him physically anymore. I just wanted to get my revenge and the price would be high for both of them. When Jeff went to the boardroom for a staff meeting I found his keys. I went and had copies made so I could go into his house where he had archived copies of his source code. I was already allowed access to his computer system, but I hacked into his security files and got all of his and his programmer's passwords. I wrote a little virus program that would delete his source code. It would seek out all copies of his program on every drive on his network, and that included computers he had hooked up at home and at all of his customers. I knew when I activated that program all passwords would be changed so no one could get into the system, and that all copies of his precious program would be destroyed forever, and so would he. Then I hacked into my wife's computer at work and using her password to access the tracking program I transferred $200,000 out of my business account into Jeff's account. Then transferred it again to an account that I set up in his name in the Grand Cayman Islands. Then I went back in and sloppily erased the trail to the money. It would be difficult, but a good analyst would eventually be able to track the money. I was sure of it. I don't know if Jeff and Karen got back together again on Wednesday night, but I assume they did. It really didn't matter to me anymore. Thursday morning I triggered my virus program to run. Friday morning at 9 a.m. I handed my report to Jeff on the software code theft and was told him that CSFI would bill him for my services. I knew that was one bill that would never be paid, but I didn't care. I left his office with him telling me it has been a pleasure to know you and I thought if you only knew you wouldn't say that. But I smiled and shook his hand and said good luck, he was going to need it. I went to his home, let myself in with the keys I had copied and found all archived copies of his program. I took them with me and headed to Milwaukee. Once I got to my apartment there I lit a fire in the fireplace and destroyed them all. I wanted my revenge on him. But I have my honor also and didn't plan on making any profit personally with his programming. I stayed there on Thursday night and waited for the shit to hit the fan. Well, how did it all play out? Friday morning I went to the office to let Carrie know I had finished the project and that Marco's software could be billed. She told me she would take care of it and my fee would be forwarded to my account. I drove home and walked into the house to find a crying Karen. She told me that she had been sent home pending an investigation into securities fraud involving money transferred out of our business account. I acted shocked and asked her to fill me in on the details. She told me all she knows about money being transferred to a Jeff Marcos, and that was it. I asked her if she knew Jeff Marcos, and she said she had met him at the office a couple of weeks ago, but that she really didn't know him and had no idea what had happened. At Marco's software there was lots shocked the fan. At 9 a.m. when everyone was working his or her little off, all of a sudden everything went dead. None of the programmers could get into the system. Jeff couldn't get into the system, and the phones were ringing off the hook because none of their customers could use the tracking program. I didn't get to see any of this, but I knew it was happening just as I described. Of course, I learned later that Jeff had fired Tom for stealing source code, and after everything went dead he blamed Tom for that too. Oh well, Tom was not innocent so he can pay the price too. You know I am a programmer, and anyone who messes with source code deserves to be penalized. They traced the $200,000 to Jeff's account, and he denied knowing anything about it and accused Karen of doing it. She denied knowing anything about it and accused Jeff of doing it. During the investigation, I kept my cool until Jeff let it slip that they had had a sexual relationship. Then I confronted Karen, and she admitted it, all the while crying that she was so sorry and would I please forgive her. She said it was the one and only time she had ever done anything like that, and only did it this one time because she was so lonely with me gone longer than usual. I knew that was a lie, but I didn't even challenge it. It didn't matter anymore. Jeff was found guilty of securities fraud and fined $50,000, but also saw 6 months of jail time. I heard he was out in 3 months for good behavior, but of course when he got out he didn't have his program or his company anymore. The last I knew, he was working as a programmer for one of his competitors, and ironically, Tom worked for the same place. Karen was fired from her job. I told her I couldn't get past her cheating on me and had her served with divorce papers. I invoked the infidelity clause of our marriage contract. Remember, I am a computer geek, and her settlement was only 10% of our net worth. She was fined $50,000 for securities fraud and was given 3 years probation. She was lucky that she did not go to prison, but she only had $150,000 left to live on. Her share was $200,000. She couldn't even buy a decent house in the Chicago area with that much money, so she ended up moving to Milwaukee and became a waitress in a bar. I am sure she will do well since she still has that sexy body, but she won't live the good life she had with me, computer boy. And I hope she always remembers how much I loved her, and it hurts when she thinks of me. Epilogue. I sold the house in Highland Park and moved into the apartment in Milwaukee. I still had $1.8 million from our joint funds and another $1.2 million in the CSFI account, so I decided it was time that I enjoyed my wealth for a change. I sold the company for another $4 million and knew it was time that Carrie got to know her real boss. She said she knew it was I all along, no matter what disguise I used. Gotta love that woman, and I do, often and well, and she loves it in me. Neither of us works full-time anymore. We are just enjoying the fruits of our labor. We got married soon after my divorce became final, and we are expecting our first child this coming December. When I feel the urge to actually do some work, I write programs. Thank you for joining us on Revolving Time, where we bring you real-life stories that explore the complexities of the human experience. We hope that our stories have provided you with insights, inspiration, and a renewed appreciation for the power of human resilience. Remember, this channel exists because of your support, and I want it to be a place where we can all come together, learn, and have a great time. Your feedback is vital, and I appreciate every single suggestion and comment you provide. We encourage you to subscribe to our channel and stay connected with our community. By subscribing, you will be the first to know about new stories and events, and you'll have access to a library of inspiring content. Thank you once again for being a part of our journey, and we look forward to sharing more powerful stories with you in the future.